My journey on this photo shoot prep, it's something I've been meaning to talk about. Week 13 of 14, so a week out from the prep. And yeah, I'm gonna just chat a little bit about the topics that I found were the learnings throughout this whole process. Doing this as I'm driving up to one of my clients' photo shoots, so the irony is quite nice there, but let's just deep dive into this. This is very off the bat. It's not really scripted. I've got like 5 or 6 one-words written down that I'm going to talk about and my experience on this journey. So the first thing I think needs to be brought up, and it's a bit of a grim one, is I think we need to suffer daily or suffer every now and then in order to achieve our best true self. And that sounds a bit grim, right? What I mean about this is that short-term suffering causes long-term gain. And when you go through a photo shoot, you are suffering to some extent, right? Like, you've got to be on track, you've got to avoid certain things, hit your steps, blah, 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 blah. It can get tough, it can be hard. But at the same time, from a productivity standpoint within my workspace, so running my business, helping my clients, it's been unbelievable. Like, it's been the most productive month I've had in well over 2 years. You know, from a result standpoint with clients, from a support capacity, from a financial capacity, it's just been unbelievable. And it's because I've had to lock into such a strong routine with my steps, my nutrition, my sleep, my cardio, everything like that. So it just, as a natural result, I can see the productivity incrementally increase, and it's coming down from that long-term suffering. I think the suffering side of things, it forces you to do things that makes you uncomfortable, and it builds up a level of resilience that normally isn't there when we're in a level of comfort. And I always say comfort breeds complacency. Once someone starts to feel comfortable, that's when the complacency kicks in. So that sense of suffering helps us to actually get out of that, get into those uncomfortable situations and do things that we probably wouldn't have done if we didn't get uncomfortable. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I always have a great phrase that sums it up, is that you cannot grow without a growing pain. So this is my growing pain to grow. Second topic I want to talk about is consistency. And I think this is hugely important when it comes to getting into incredible shape, right? So naturally, we all know there's a difference between getting from 20% body fat down to 10% or sub 10%, right? And the magic formula that gets you there from the 20 to the 10 is consistency, right? A lot of people always say, like, what's the magic diet, or how can I lose 20 plus kilo or 10 plus kilo? And the answer is so simple and it's so boring, people don't want to hear it, but it's consistency, right? Like, I've been doing this now for 13 weeks in a row, and my nutrition has stayed the same. My steps have always been 10K or above. I've been hitting my 4 35-minute cardio sessions. And that's been week in, week out, day in, day out. That just has not changed, right? So the consistency side of things is huge. And if you really want to be truly successful, and this is something now I've just really kind of noticed out of the 2 photo shoots, if you really want to be successful, get your consistency in place. You cannot be doing this 5 days a week and then taking the piss for 2 days, you know? You have to be 110% committed, 110% consistent with it. And that's wrong. Not even 100% committed, like 80% commitment, because I get how busy people are going to be, and there's going to be times where you mess up, and there's going to be times when life gets in the way. You know, for me, when everything happened in Dubai and I had to jump ship back home, like in the space of like 2 days trying to book a flight, and then a week in Frankfurt because of the logistics of flights and things, that completely threw me off. I didn't have control over my nutrition in a sense of not being able to track calories for a couple of days, but I still kept that consistency in place of steps, still getting into the gym, still controlling the nutrition to the best of my abilities. So, you know, I know you can't give 100% commitment all the time, but you can give a high level of consistency, and that's going to be absolutely key in terms of success. Third point is weekends, and this ties in quite nicely with the consistency, and it's probably an area that where most people struggle, and it's really something I've kind of noticed a lot with people, is that they do well Monday to Thursday or Monday to Friday, and they completely take the piss on the weekends. And I think there's 2 contributing factors to this, right? Number one, we've been working hard all week, you know, under stress, maybe we've got the kids, whatever it is, and we start to see that weekend as a time to switch off and relax. And it is, right? I use my weekends to switch off and relax. But we've got to be somewhat controlled still in what we do if we want to see a result. So that's the first thing that I think is the reason why. The second thing I've noticed is that you get a lot on social media of oh, you can do this, that, and the other and still lose weight. You can be free, you can be flexible, you can blah, 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 fake ways, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I think that breeds a sense of, oh, I can be complacent on the weekend. I can still drink because my favorite fitness influencer goes out drinking every night, or not every night, every weekend, and he still has a six-pack, or she still has great physique. Like, they're being controlled with it, and that's the part that they're not telling you. They're hooking you in by saying you can still drink and have a great physique, but they're not telling you, well, you know, you can only have 3 or 4 drinks and you've got to keep it controlled. And that's the key difference. So when it comes to the weekends, absolutely yes, you can enjoy your weekends. You can have more time to relax. You can maybe have an off-plan meal or maybe a couple of drinks, but there still has to be control there, right? Like, if you are having a meal out, it's a case of managing the breakfast and lunch, saving calories for later on for that meal. It's about picking the better decision on the menu and not going for the big mighty meaty pizza, right? Like, you still have to make those decisions. Same thing if you go out drinking, you know, if you've got your mates, whatever it is, or you're catching up with friends, it's a case of saying, right, I'm gonna have 4 or 5 bottles of beer and then I'm gonna have Coke Zero. Or just not drink at all and just go out and spend time with your mates. Like, these are all the things that you've got to do. And I don't think people tell other people that, or the influencers or the coaches don't tell other people that. So people go into the weekends and still think that they can carry those same habits. And you can't, because the habits that you've been carrying for the last couple of weeks, months, or years, they're the habits that have got you into this position, right? And that kind of leads me on to my next point, is habits. Like, when we're looking at making a change and actually getting a result, and this goes back to kind of that suffering element that I talked about, like, you've got to shift identity. You're becoming a new person, because the person you currently are at the moment isn't serving you, right? Like, they're actually negatively impacting you and affecting you, because that's the reason you're in this position, right? Like all those bad habits you carry out day to day, week to week, that's why you're overweight. That's why you can't make a change, or that's why you're not your true self, or you're not fulfilling your true potential. So you've got to become this new person and have an identity shift. And in order to do that, you've got to change your habits, right? Like, I know for myself, coming towards the end of the bulk or the building phase, like, I was really just justifying, especially in Dubai, it's so easy just to pop onto a delivery service and order whatever you want, right? So I love burritos, and I was justifying saying that it was like okay to have them 2-3 times a week because I was getting a burrito bowl, right? Like, still calorie dense, still probably, like, not the worst. I could have been getting worse for sure, but like, still quite calorie dense. And I was doing that quite a lot, or I was justifying going out on weekends with the guys a little bit more because, hey, I've got spare calories, right? And they were the bad habits that started to creep in towards the end. Now, they definitely weren't as bad compared to the first time I went on a building phase, right? But like, they did start to creep in a little bit naturally. And they were the habits I had to work on. The other habits that I had to work on a lot as well was my relationship with food. Like, my first photo shoot, that prep, I had an extremely bad relationship with food, like an extremely bad relationship with food. It came to the point where the coach I was with, he had a very restrictive mindset as well, like a very restrictive mindset, which in hindsight, like, I actually took a lot of learning from that, because now I applied this to my coaching with my clients, and I make sure that there's no restriction with my clients and they feel okay having a bit of food. But yeah, like, he was really, really restrictive with his food, and that past then rubbed on to me. But that's something that I learned a lot in terms of like the habits that I built up with my food, that this time around going into prep, I wasn't going to have that, and I was going to be a lot more mindful with my food and include 1 or 2 bits of chocolate or a meal out, because it's okay to do that even if you are on prep. And so there were a load of new habits that I built, and I became a new person, and my identity shifted because of that. And that, you know, with an identity shift, and I know I might be harping on a little bit here with this identity shift, but it's so important. Like, a lot of people will start to notice when they start to make this shift, they'll outgrow people as well. Like, you might have the same group of friends that go to the same pub on the same day once or twice every single weekend, and they just drink pints, right? And like, as you start to change and make new habits, like, you might start to outgrow them, which is not a bad thing. We always outgrow people. You might just not spend as much time with them, but they still could be your friends, right? But like, these are sort of things that you'll have to be prepared to do, is to make those identity shifts and be okay and comfortable with them, you know, because change is scary, but change is good, right? So habits, absolutely crucial. You've got to bring in new habits, especially around your weekends. You can't just keep taking the piss every single weekend and expect an outcome. Like, think about it. Like, imagine you put 20 quid away every single day, Monday to Friday. You've got 100 quid saved, but then you blow the 100, or you blow 80 of it on the Saturday. you're left with 20. So like 4 days of hard saving is now down the drain. It's the same concept with fat loss. Like if you do so well Monday to Friday and then blow it all on Saturday, and then you're too hungover to do anything Sunday, you've just outdone like 4 weeks of work. Like, you know, instead of you being down to 0.6, 0.7 kilo, you're probably only down about 0.2. And it's just making your journey so much more longer, so much more difficult. And yeah, it's just been completely prolonged. So get your habits right and a lot will change very, very quickly for you. Steps and nutrition are absolutely key if you want to get into really good shape. Now I'm talking visible abs is what we're talking about here. Like, you could easily drop 10 kilo with, you know, just increasing your steps by 1 or 2K and adding a small amount of cardio. But if you truly want to see a great result and see a really good physique change, you've got to increase your cardio in particular. So steps for me never changed, kept them at 10K. Now, most days I actually exceeded that just naturally, which is a point I want to talk about and probably finish up on. Cardio though, it started at 4 15-minute sessions and it increased all the way up to 4 35-minute sessions at the end. So, you know, if you have a look at that, that's 140 minutes of cardio I was doing on a weekly basis. It takes up your time. It does. Like, and I'm not gonna, that's one of the hard things about a photo shoot prep is that, like, it's time consuming. You've got to dedicate this time towards your steps and towards your cardio because it has to get done. And if you actually want to see a good change and see that body fat drop, you've got to incorporate your cardio and your steps as well, right? They're not the be on all and end all. Like, nutrition plays a huge role, and so does your resistance training. But you know, if you really want to burn more calories, you've got to get that cardio up. So it's absolutely essential. And I think it was an important part to bring into this and make note of it. Next learning is routine is absolutely essential. If you really want to be successful with a change, you've got to nail down a routine and keep it consistent. So, and this again is where so many people go wrong with their fat loss journey. They're like, oh, I might get a workout in this week, or I might have an hour here today to get a workout in. It's all of this wishy-washy language. I might, I'll see how the day pans out, etc. That will not get you a result, and you've got to keep an eye on that, okay? So best thing you can do is treat it like a working timetable, like you do when you go to work. You know your shifts, you know your times, you know when your lunch break is, for most people anyways, and you stick to it, and it creates that habit and it creates that routine. Do the same if you want to be successful with fat loss. So for me, I had my same training days, Monday, Tuesday, and then I would always go Thursday and either Saturday or Sunday, right? I always included one weekend session because I had more time to do it. It was enjoyable. But that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday was always put in stone. My Wednesday was always a rest day until I had to increase my cardio, and then it was my cardio day. And I just kept it same day, same time, every morning without fail. And it just built up such a strong routine for me. It allowed me to do that. So that's an absolutely key thing as well that's worth mentioning. The last thing I want to talk about second last thing, obviously my relationship with food has hugely increased, and I think it's because I've come into this prep with a lot less kind of restraint or restriction. I think the last time when I went into it, I was definitely in with a coach that I, at the time, actually hugely admired for what he was doing. I don't particularly actually admire, well, I think he's changed a lot. I haven't followed him in a while, so it's probably very unfair for me to say if I do or don't admire him, but when I did finish up with that coach, there was a lot of things that went wrong, and I think he was dealing with a lot of things as well, to be fair, you know, and I'm not in a position to comment, so I'm not going to go into that. But basically I went in with a coach that I hugely admired, and I thought, you know, I wanted to live up to his standard and how he was running everything. And as I seen how I kind of went through that with the food, it really built a hugely poor relationship with my food. And I'll actually do a different video on my relationship with food, because I think it's quite an important one to talk about. So basically it was very flawed, and that's where I came into this one. And probably the main driving force for me to do another photo shoot is to say I could do it with keeping my relationship intact with food, right? Because I was put off the whole, like, the food took me genuinely nearly 2 years to fully recover from, like, actually building my relationship up with my food. So it was a big thing for me to do this and to actually make sure I could do it and still maintain it, like, a really good relationship with my food. So went in and I did it, and I'm very proud of myself for doing it. And a big thing for me was going in with a little bit less everything has to be absolutely 110% sort of mentality, right? And that's kind of the sort of person I am. I'm very much a perfectionist, that it needs to be done 100%, otherwise it's not a good job. And I'm very critical of myself as well in that regard. So I wanted to come in with a little bit more of a lax approach to my food and not think about it too much, and I did. And I went out for a couple of meals with Stace. I went to Sean, one of my best mates' engagement party. I had drinks there. I had obviously meals out. I often included chocolate, and I made sure to include some sort of a sweet treat into my meals every single day, right up until the last 2 weeks of my photo shoot prep, because I wanted to make sure that I could still keep a good relationship with my food. And awareness was the key thing. Like, being aware of my physical and mindset, my physical state and my mindset was huge. So always just checking in on myself, like, how are you feeling today? Are you stressed? Like, is there any sort of trigger that's going to come up that wants you to just go and emotionally eat? And you know, I actually did a lot of research into this, between the difference between hunger and appetite and the different factors that affect our appetite. It's something that I'm actually bringing a lot in with our clients at the moment and trying to help them to understand the difference and to become a lot aware with their mindset as well and their relationship with food. And it's been a game changer in terms of how we're actually getting results for our clients as well, because they're becoming a lot more aware. But that sense of awareness of checking in on myself, seeing where my stress levels were at and making those little adjustments was huge. Also, when I was going to the press, and if I wanted a chocolate bar, I was like, do I actually want this? Like, do I want this because, you know, I've still can work it into my calories, can go about my day normally, just want to have that nice satisfaction of one chocolate bar, the taste of it, and be okay with it? Or am I just picking at this because I'm bored, right? And asking those questions allowed me to take control of the decision and not let my mindset or my emotion take over the decision, which was huge. So that's something that I worked on massively, and I'm so happy with it. And like, even now, like I'm a week out, I'm definitely getting hungry now, and the cravings are through the roof, especially the last couple of days. They really kicked in, but I still have full control over my food. Like, if I wanted to have a chocolate bar right now, I would, and I wouldn't worry or panic about it, and I know it wouldn't affect the result, even being a week out. Also, this time last year, when I went for the photo shoot, I remember the day of the photo shoot, I was actually more concerned about picking up the cookies, the chocolate bars, the cakes, whatever it was, than I was actually getting the photo shoot that day, right? And don't get me wrong, actually one of my clients bakes, and I'm going to get her to bake me a couple of nice cakes and cookies, one or two, nothing mad. But that's where my mindset's at. Whereas last time I was like driving to the photo shoot and trying to find a place where I could get cookies instead of worrying about how I looked and felt on the day of the shoot. And even after that, like, went on a complete spiral overate. Whereas I know, like, I'll go out for a meal with Stace, like, well deserved. The poor girl has put up with me for the last near 13 weeks. We'll be pizza pals that night. That's our thing, sometimes, to go for a pizza. So we're going to go out, we'll get a pizza. Next day, Mom's going to cook me a lasagna. She cooks the best lasagna. It's one of my favorites from my mum's food. And after that, I'm just going to get back on track and just slowly build my calories back up as normal. And I have no desire or urge or need to have to make any, like, you know, curve any sort of craving. So I'm very happy with how that worked. And I will, like I said, do another video on that with the nutrition. But to top it off, it's mindset. Mindset is the biggest one when it comes to doing something like a photo shoot prep or a fat loss journey, right? Someone might not want to do a photo shoot prep, but a fat loss journey is key. And one thing I realized was that limiting beliefs will hold so many people back, and it literally shapes our mindset, right? I remember, like, going through this about 2 weeks ago, where I was starting to get, like, into the depths of prep. Your last 4 weeks of a photo shoot prep or a prep stepping on stage are grim, right? They're just grim. There's no two ways about it. And I was starting to get to that stage, and I was moping a bit. I was like, oh, why do I have to do a gym session? I'm so tired, and oh, I'm starting to crave food, and blah, blah, blah. And I actually looked at it, and I was like, you know, like, there was 1 week where I was hoping my coach Alan would give me a refeed. So I was really kind of like, oh, he's just going to give me a refeed. I'm moping here a little bit. If I mope to him, I'll get this refeed, right? And I kind of, like, I put the check-in in now. I wasn't moping, but, like, I kind of let known that I was a bit tired and hungry, etc. And he didn't give me one because I didn't need it, right? And for a second I was like, oh, fuck's sake, why didn't he give me one, right? And Alan, if you're watching this, my apologies, I should have told you this, but I kind of clicked out of it. I listened to a podcast all about limiting beliefs that day, believe it or not. And I was thinking, I was like, I'm actually in such a great position right now. Like, you know, I'm still in really good health, and I'm not overly tired. Like, yes, I'm a little bit tired with the travel and stuff, but I'm still in a really good position here. Like, there's no need for that refeed. And I actually made a little commitment to myself and said, you know what, like, Alan said to me there, go get these targets, right? And I was like, I'm going to make sure that I get those targets, but I'm going to do an extra 5%, right? And my mindset was like, from here on out, for these last 4 weeks, anything he gives me, I'm going to do an extra 5%. And it was to prove to myself that it was just a limiting belief and it was my mindset that was causing me to be a mopey little fucker. But also as well, is like on the day of the photo shoot, when I'm standing there and your man's taking a photo of me, I know I've put absolutely everything into this and I can't give anymore. So that's kind of the mindset behind it, you know. So they're just a little bit of my learnings. I hope it's been somewhat useful, and I hope I haven't harped on too much and you guys have taken something from this. But again, like I said, trying to just get through these last few days now, and I'm really excited to see the outcome. So thank you for listening. Make sure you tune in. If you haven't subscribed, please do. It does help the account, and I'll keep you updated when I do the photo shoot.